Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you this afternoon, getting close to mid-afternoon. Sorry I didn't get a review done sooner. I hope you enjoyed my Rita Ora album review last night. It took so fucking long to upload it because of my Wi-Fi. But I'm gonna try to get this out to you as soon as possible. It just depends on the Wi-Fi speed as well. So this is for From Ashes to New's new album that I did get a chance to listen to. Just finished up on it just now for Blackout. Their next, I think this is their fourth album that I'm reviewing, because I reviewed Panic a few years ago, and now I'm going to let you know my thoughts on this new album of theirs, which I did pre-order this album, and I'm going to be talking about it. So let's dive right into this album review for From Ashes to New Blackout, because I'm going to let you know what I listened to for all 12 songs. And let you know my thoughts on it. So Heartache was the first single that came out last year. I think it was June of 2021 it came out. And I think it's a solid track. I mean, it's not anything great, but it's one of the weaker ones in my opinion to start the album. It's not terrible in any way. It's good, but one of my least favorites. Not something I would listen to all the time, because there are better songs on this album than that song. So 4.5 out of 5 for Heartache. Danny's vocals is pretty good in it. Matt Branberry's moments in his rapping is solid, but it's just the way it sounds overall. It's my biggest issue with the track. It's just not to my liking, this track, but it's something. It's a good song, just has a few critiques about it. Nightmare is a pretty strong track. Really like Danny Case's screams in it at the bridge part, and I like his vocal performance in this track with the chorus. It sounds really good. I think this track did pretty well commercially, and it did pretty well. It made a lot of views on YouTube. It came out this past February of this year, so really enjoyed the single for what it went for, so 5 out of 5. Then comes Hate Me Too. I think this was another solid one that came out, I think in March. I think it came out, like late March, I believe is when it came out. But this was the song to announce the album's announcement and all that for Blackout to drop as of course July 28th. And yeah, I think this song is solid. Not something I'm really gonna be coming back to too much. It's just I have my critiques on it with how it sounds, and I think this song is a little iffy. So 4.5 out of 5. Good track, just not something I would listen to all the time. Hope You're Happy. I think it had some weak moments at the verses, but I think it picked up as the track went on. I like the drum work in the first or second chorus of the track. It started progressing, this track, as it went on, and I was really enjoying how the lyrics were sounding and how Danny Case's vocals were sounding. I mean, Matt Branberry was doing fine in the track, just there were some weak moments with like the first opening verse being iffy. But other than that, the track was pretty good, so 5 out of 5. Barely Breathing is the next song, and I think it's a pretty good song for what I went for. The chorus is pretty catchy with how Danny Case is singing it, and it executes well performance-wise, so 5 out of 5. I mean, there are some weak moments, but I think like execution-wise, it did pretty well. Dead to Me is a pretty strong track. Really like this one. And yeah, 5 out of 5 for Barely Breathing. Dead to Me is a pretty good track. There's some good drum work in this, and sorry the video's lagging a bit on my end. It's being a little slow on my end, so please forgive that. It's just trying to pick up with me talking and all that. So 5 out of 5 for Dead to Me. I think the track itself performed pretty well, and Danny Case's vocals is pretty good, and Matt Branberry's rapping is pretty strong. Monster in Me is probably one of my favorites. I really like this one. Matt Branberry really went all out with his rapping in this track, and I really enjoyed that aspect about this track because it was something different for them. And I will say this, I believe found their new kind of sound for this new album. I mean, Yeah, the last album they were trying something like a Linkin Park thing to close out the Panic album, and I think they were trying to find their original sound. I think this album is where they really hit that mark with finding their own sound uh, as a band. So they tried something different with this one, and I think that something different turned out pretty well. Monster and Me is my favorite song from this album, along with Armageddon, um, and the other tracks as well. So 5 out of 5 for Monster and Me. It's just Matt Branberry's rapping is pretty strong, and there's some good execution moments with how it's sounding with his verses and all that. And Danny Case comes in at certain with his screams and singing. Um, 2 sections of the song, close to the end, like the middle of the track and at the end, but it still performed pretty well. Echoes is a pretty strong track in my opinion. Really like how Danny Case is singing it, and I think it performed pretty well for what it was going for, so 5 out of 5. Then comes the last single we got from them 2 months ago, Armageddon, one of my favorite songs. In my opinion, I listened to this back to back. I listened to this quite a lot because I really enjoyed this track. When Matt Branberry's rapping in it is pretty good, and this track does rock for sure. So 5 out of 5. Legacy's pretty good. Really enjoyed that song, and I enjoyed the aspect about how it was sounding with Matt Branberry and Danny Case performing pretty well, and drum work and guitar wise, it did pretty well. Pretty much most of this album had something different going for it, but I think that different is a good thing. Until We Break featuring Matty Mullins is a pretty strong track. I listened to this back in October, and I really enjoyed how this song sounded overall, execution-wise and performance-wise. Matty Mullins doing his screams at the bridge is pretty great, and I really enjoyed that about the track. And sorry about the background noise. There's someone mowing out there, so one of my neighbors. Basically, Legacy 5 out of 5, Until We Break 5 out of 5, and the final track is a great closing track, Broken by Design. Really rockin' track. I really like how it's sounding overall with Danny Case's screams and his clean vocals are performing pretty well. I think Matt Branberry did some rapping in it from time to time, but I think mostly Danny took over this track and wanted to make it sound good. So 5 out of 5 for Broken by Design. Overall, production, mixing, and execution-wise, I think From Ashes to New finally found their own sound they were looking for. And I know I made a video about how they sound like Linkin Park. I think they only did that for that Panic album, because they were trying to look for their own original sound. And I think this is the album where they really tried something different and tried finding their own kind of sound for musically and instrumentally and all that. And I think this album worked. Experimental wise, it did pretty well. So for an overall score for me, I think From Ashes to New, Blackout, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. Really rockin' album. I mean, there are some least favorites. I mean, Hope You're Happy did have a little weak opening verse, but I think the rest of the track did progress, and the rest of the tracks are pretty much my favorite. Along with Nightmare, Armageddon, Until We Break, Legacy, Broken by Design, Echoes, Monster and Me, Dead to Me, Barely Breathing, and Hope You're Happy, and like I said, Nightmare were my favorites. The other two songs, my least favorites, but I think the album performed pretty well execution-wise. And I'm glad they found their own sound. Hopefully they can keep continuing down this route. Making different kind of tastes with their own sound. So I believe musically this album performed very well. 9 out of 10 for From Ashes to New, Blackout. Thank you guys for watching.